but it is our duty to the best of our ability. And I appreciate your time, your candor with us today to join us. So, if I may, what I need to do is invited testimony is closed. What I need to do is open it up to public testimony. I do have 3 cards, 2 that wish to not publicly testify, but 1 that does. With that, Regent Hicks, I'm more than pleased to release you from joining us, if you may. But I'd also like to do, Madam Secretary, Mr. Beck, if I may, because we'll begin with you as soon as the public testimony is over with, Madam Secretary. It has been almost 2 hours. If you'd like to, I know the water didn't work, but if you'd like to hit the restroom, grab a glass of water, so please remain close. Senator Watson.
Does that include members of the
members of the committee, if you would like, I'd like to offer you an operational pause, as we would say. Mr. Hicks, you are excused and released. But while we do the public testimony portion, I'd like to do it if I may. Thank you again for joining us, Mr. Hicks. I've got two witness cards that would like to register against but not testify. Marilyn Gertzenslager, no testimony but wishes to register opposition. And then registering up against opposition but not testifying, registering position only, Michael Sullivan. And then wishing to, no, let's complete, since we're doing each region sequentially, we need to do the testimony sequentially as well. But registering against but wishing to provide oral testimony, Tony McDonald. Mr. McDonald, would you please step forward? And then please state your name for the record and who you represent, and you have 3 minutes. Thank you, Mr. McDonald.
Good morning, Senators. My name is Tony McDonald. I'm an attorney, UT Law grad. I'm here representing myself. Some of you know I'm General Counsel for Empower Texans, but I'm here on my own accord to speak about my personal experiences in relation to the scandals that affect these nominees. I oppose each of these 3 nominees, but I specifically would like to speak with regard to Mr. Beck and with regard.
Well, let me ask this,
Mr.
McDonald.
Hicks.
Right. I know that you registered cards with the others, but in having the testimony done sequentially, right now Mr. Hicks is the nominee in question. So if you would, your 3 minutes would keep that to your opposition to Mr. Hicks, and then when the other nominees are brought forward, we'll have an opportunity at that time as well.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald.
I was attending the University of Texas when Dean Sager was forced to resign. That came as a shock to the students that day. But in retrospect, I don't know that it should have been. I can recall various comments from professors about how they were distracted by things that were going on at the law school. I can recall comments, you could see the distraction on their faces that was going on as a result of the forgivable loan scandal that was affecting the law school. We did not know about that at the time. I don't know how much that impacted my education, the quality of education I received. I do know the law school fell in terms of ranking as a result of that scandal. It's a disservice to each of us, to my classmates, that occurred. May I ask real quick, may I have 1 minute or 1 minute left?
1 minute so far.
Okay, thank you. With regard to the admissions scandal that was documented in the Kroll report, I can recall applying to UT and taking the university's advice. It says on its website that letters from elected officials are generally not useful. I've been around politics. I probably could have gotten a letter, but I respected that advice. I assumed if I showed up with a letter from some politician, that would hurt my chances of admission, because they told me not to do that. As it turns out, that simply wasn't the case. as we now know. I ended up getting in. I have friends who I know who scored higher than me, who were rejected, some who were waitlisted, and these are students in the top 1 or 2% of LSAT test takers who were rejected whenever there were people who scored a 128 who reportedly got in. That's the bottom 1%. I can recall a personal story, a little uncomfortable, but the stress that students go through to try to get into the university the honest way. My girlfriend at the time, I was tutoring her to try and get an LSAT score. She thought she needed to follow me to UT. I would have followed her wherever she wanted to go. But she was trying to get an LSAT score high enough. You know, she was interning for Susan Combs at the time, and I just have to ask myself now, would a letter from the comptroller have been good enough to get her into UT Law? Could she have avoided all of that stress that was really just tearing her up to try and get a score high enough to get into UT? I think she would have gotten a score high enough, but I'll never know that. Quite frankly, I think it is an insult, and I'll wrap up very briefly. I think it is an insult to the students, to the alumni, to the people of Texas, to each of you senators, and indeed to the governor, that Mr. Hicks, who has avoided any further inquiry into each of these scandals at every turn, would even ask to be reappointed. He cannot clean up a mess that he has essentially been a part of. So with that, I'll end my testimony. I'm happy to take any questions, and I'm happy to speak to the other nominees later.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. Members, any questions of the witness? Thank you for joining us this morning, Mr. McDonald. Thank you. Is there any other testimony on, for, or against Regent Hicks? Hearing none, public testimony is closed.